Welcome to the Library Board meeting on November 20th, 2018. The time is 5:03 p.m., so let's call this meeting to order. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
All right. Gail? Here. Aaron?
Here.
My God. Tracy. I was like, Tina, no. Robin? Here. Barb? Here. Tony? Here. Camille? Here. Alderman Capusta is absent.
It's Aaron and the ladies today, huh?
Yeah, I noticed that. Wow, I'm surrounded here. Wow. Yeah. All right. Statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance to the open meeting law.
Thank you. Public comment, not seeing anyone from the general public this evening. Let's move into consent agenda. So it looks like we have two items on the agenda. Approval of minutes from the last board meeting, which was October 16th, 2018. And then, of course, to place on file the library financial report. So at this time, looking for a motion for approval on the consent agenda, please.
So we're approving both of those things then at one time? Is that what?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Usually.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. All right, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Consent agenda. You'll abstain?
Wasn't here.
Gotcha. All right.
Even though I'm not supposed to have to do that.
And usually I ask for abstentions. You beat me to it. You taught me. All right. President's report, no formal report this evening. So let's get into the director's report.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy November.
You too.
One more board meeting after this for the year. So here we go. Let's see. So we had some great adult events. The Milwaukee War Dogs event was really well attended, so we're excited about that. We had a memory cafe today. Let's see. We had 2 staff go to the Wisconsin Library Association, which is always really productive. It's really great to meet with other librarians across the state. They came back and gave me reports on what they learned. There was a lot of interesting information about technology and seniors and senior programming with technology, so we're looking forward to exploring that in 2019. We are going to host the Lions Club annual Peace Poster contest again, so that's just something that we really always appreciate partnering with. And it's really great to see all the what all the children do. We had a Halloween dance party, so this was one of the 2018 action plan goals, was to develop a new program, Storytime program, and so Jane, our children's assistant, developed a dance party. So, we were looking for doing something different than our traditional Brilliant Babies, Toddlers, Music Makers lineup, and so we were thinking, like, what are we missing, or what do we have an absence of? And dancing and movement is really, important for development too. And the dance party has just been wildly popular. Really, the parents, I think, appreciate it, as do the kids. The Halloween dance party, they all came in costumes. My favorite was the little kid with the monkey and the banana in his pocket. So it was really fun. And then we had trick-or-treats, story times throughout the week, so the kids got to get little trick-or-treat things from the different library staff. They got to march around the library. It was really fun. We had several other programs that went well. And this is an exciting number. So Abby went through the statistics compared to 2017, and we have already surpassed program attendance compared to last year for children's programming. Wonderful. So I would imagine by the end of December we'll have a nice number to talk about.
We didn't think that was possible even.
I know. And at some point, just realistically, that will level out.
Yep.
Because
Right.
you only have so much capacity. But it's great to see the growth over the years since Abby and the children's department really came in here and started making changes.
That's great.
Believe it or not, they're still finishing touches to the children's area. We've been using temporary signs on the different bookends, but we wanted something more permanent, easy to read and change out. And so the sign company, I wrote, "It's being delivered this week." I think they lied to me because it's not here yet. So I need to follow up with them. But in theory, it should be arriving soon, and that's really exciting because signage is so important to libraries, and we're looking forward to, I'll talk about this a little bit later, in 2019, sort of assessing signage throughout the entire building and figuring out where we have gaps and where we can improve that. So, all right, so we had slime program for the teens. Amanda's trying something new, a teen volunteer program. We know that teens need volunteer hours, and we're really hoping to sort of inspire them to earn some of those volunteer hours with us, making paracord bracelets for Operation Gratitude. So that's exciting and something new that we're trying with the teens. So that's great. We had a mitten drive here that Jolynn ran, and we collected over 50 items, and some items that our crochet group made. So sort of crossing the community in a couple of ways, which is great. And we are doing the Chamber of Commerce Jingle on Janesville coming up this Saturday. So just to give you a little visual, we are going to have a tree lighting ceremony at 10, so that's going to be in the lobby. And then we'll bring out, at that point, Santa and Mrs. Claus and 2 elves. And we're going to bring out the fireplace that we have, the fake fireplace, no real fires in the library, sitting in the back periodical area. So we'll bring that out, and they can sit next to the fireplace, and then kids can take, or adults can take photos with Santa and Mrs. Claus. And there's a company who the chamber worked with to get ornaments sponsored, so they'll hand out an ornament for the first 300 families, so that's exciting. And then we have Jolynn. I asked her to come up with some type of children's craft, and so she's going to make the kids can make little Christmas mice with a candy cane tail and little googly eyes, so the kids can work on that. So I think I mentioned this last time, but it's an exciting event because we already put up a tree. Santa and Mrs. Claus are volunteers. We already have a lot of craft supplies, so it's something that we can dip into and hopefully do something really exciting and unique for the kids and families. So I'm going to bring my daughter because she frowned throughout our church photos, and I'm trying to get a photo of her that doesn't have her scowling to send to people. So, and also to help, but definitely the photo of her smiling, hopefully. Continuing education, I attended a library standards and strategic planning workshop presented by the DPI, and it's actually much more fascinating than it sounds, and very timely given that standards are goals and something for libraries to aspire to, and as we enter into a strategic planning year next year, they gave me a lot of really great checklists, and it was really helpful to hear what the DPI had to say about libraries and how they should be assessed. It was really worthwhile, so I appreciated that. And Abby has an anniversary coming up this November, so that's great as well. That was my qualitative report. The stats are on the back of it. And let's see if there's anything of note for me to mention from October. Not really, just doing our business.
All right.
Any questions about my report?
I actually have one, but then I kind of let the financial reports go through without asking it. I apologize for that. But there was a pretty substantial raise in the amount for programming, and I just was wondering if you could explain that.
Yeah, and this was, I can't remember what meeting I talked about this at.
Maybe I just wasn't around, sorry.
No, we tried, how do I put this? We are actually doing quite fine with programming. We are 67% to actuals.
This says 288% actual to budget. That's why it struck me.
Hold on, let me just take a look. Programming.
Like here, I don't know if we're looking at the same
Oh,
thing.
yep. Actually, yeah, we're 52% actuals to budget. So the this year in finance, we were talking about finance wanted us to combine or charge all of our friends' programming expenses to the same account line item because they said it was a good accounting practice.
Oh, okay.
And so basically what you're seeing here is that $6,000 is the amount of money that we were allocated for from the city to do programming.
Mm-hmm.
But then the friends give us thousands
Sure.
of dollars in programming additionally. But of course that $6,000 only reflects what the city gave us. And so, and I knew this right from the start, and I talked to finance, and I said, this
do
account's going to
vaguely
go
remember
over
this, yeah.
budget in
Okay.
a big way, and we're going to get reimbursed in the revenue from the friends,
Right.
but
Okay.
it's going to
Yeah.
look super ugly towards the end,
Yeah.
and we are now seeing the
Yeah.
ugliness.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah,
we
I
are,
do-
yeah,
I do
we are
remember
in,
that.
Talking about
yeah,
that.
it's, and we're not doing it this way in the future. I thought it was going to be confusing,
Yeah.
and indeed it is.
It is.
So it'll look nicer in the future, and we are doing great in
Yeah.
terms of
So,
that.
and the only other thing that was a little out of whack was mileage, but I assume that's because everybody's going more places and doing more
Yeah,
things.
and I did ask for an increase in the mileage budget. So what I did to account for that is I held back a little bit in terms of, we had a little bit of leftover in dues and memberships and conferences and training. So between those two accounts,
worked
it's
out.
going to balance
Because
out.
overall, it looks like the state of the union's pretty good based on the
yeah.
percentage.
We're
for the-
doing-
And
we're
we're in the
doing well.
11th month, or 10th month for this one, so,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
Great
letting
questions.
me digress
Absolutely.
a moment.
Any other questions or concerns on the director's report? All right, well, thank you very much, Brittany. Moving along in the agenda, unfinished business. Looks like we have no unfinished business this evening, so let's move into new business. Several discussion and or action items this evening. So let's start with number one. We're looking for action approval of 2019 annual addendum to the Bridges Library System member library and cafe agreements.
So, yeah, you see a lofty 7 items that came due for us to talk about. So I apologize that this is so long. I'll try to be as succinct as but detailed as possible so that we can get out in a timely fashion. This is something that the board has to approve every year. It's an agreement that that we will agree to pay these charges in the coming 2019 year. These are numbers that I've already seen. It's numbers that I've incorporated into the 2019 operating budget. That the board and then council has already approved. So the money's there. But, I think it's smart, and I think Bridges is smart to do this to sort of really clearly state, this is what you're paying for, this is what you're getting out of this contract, this is what we're doing, and don't forget it's coming. So basically I just need an approval to sign this, to have the library board president, and then it says secretary, but I asked, and they said that it would be okay for the treasurer. Jordan is on his way. He had emailed me that he was coming from Mequon, so he might be a little late. So what I need here is an approval to have the president and the secretary sign this form and agree to the addendum.
All
Move
right.
to approve the 2019 annual addendum to the Bridges Library System member library and cafe agreements.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Barb, thank you. Discussion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. Is this what we're paying Bridges for use of these items, or is it the other way around, or what?
There's 2 boxes. So the first set of boxes is actually money that we are going to get paid from
Okay.
Waukesha County, from Lakeshore's library system, and from accept a grant from Bridges.
Okay.
So that's the money we're going to get from them. And I built that into our 2019 revenue, so that's money that was part of that whole there. And then paid by the library, these
who?
are to Bridges.
So this is just a reciprocal. Okay.
Correct, and we get a deal because
Library.
basically
By Bridges.
all the libraries under a cooperative purchasing power, we get a better rate than if we tried to singly go out and purchase the databases or a movie license or a digital magazine. So, and then that cafe fee, that big one, is the portion that we pay so that our patrons can look books up, make quotes on books. It's that huge system.
So I, as a patron, go on and I want to look at consumer reports.
Mhm.
That would be a cost to the library and databases that goes back to Bridges.
The reason why we have access to those databases is because we paid Bridges in 2019 that $4,250.
So it's not necessarily based on use. It's based
Correct.
on okay.
Correct. It's not based on use. It's a flat fee.
Okay. And that's true across the board? They're all flat fees?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns, discussion points?
Have we publicized the fact that we can do this? I did not know we could go online and access
Like the different online
the
databases.
magazines and the
Yeah,
databases.
you know, one of the things that I think we're always trying to look at newly is how can we advertise the online resources. Like I think in our like magazines area we have like a little stand that says also there's electronic magazines online. I think Consumer Reports is one of the best kept secrets. Like no, everybody wants to buy a stove, but they don't want to pay
Right.
the year
That's
subscription.
exactly what happened
just,
to me.
Yeah.
I bought my appliances just by going through the
Yep.
library site, so.
So, you know, that's something that I think is important for us to continue to look at. I think there's more we could be doing.
Sure, because I didn't know I could cancel that subscription.
Yeah.
There you go. What
Oh,
is,
yeah.
what's
Oh.
the Advantage program?
The Advantage program is what allows our patrons to get preferred access to online, the ebooks and audiobooks through Overdrive. And so basically, we if we pay into that, it allows us to get more copies of popular items, and it can help prioritize our patrons' access to them.
Versus another library in the system?
Correct.
Versus,
Yeah, but most people pay in for it. It's smart. It's the reason why for like Ready Player One, instead of there being one copy and it taking like 7 years for people to get access to it, there's just more copies available so that
I
we all
see.
can, you know.
Unlike Writer's Market, which I have never gotten
Oh, really?
after years.
Yeah. Wow.
Never seen it.
Oh.
But anyway,
How many libraries are involved with this program? Like with,
Oh, how many libraries are in our system? 12, 13? It's all the libraries in Waukesha and Jefferson County.
about 13?
I think so.
I just find the movie license thing to be quite high. If everyone's paying $481,
That's what we
we
pay
only
per
paid
school.
100. We only paid 100.
For a school viewing,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a one-time fee.
Nope, it was for the whole year.
Well,
At what school?
Country Meadows.
Because I already paid for it.
This is through the PTO, so that we could view movies.
Because I bought a license, so you would be able to.
We didn't do it through the school. We did it ourselves. The PTO bought it
But you wouldn't
ourselves.
have had to, because what we do for schools, it's about $481 per school, and it covers all after-school evening.
I know, but I got it a lot cheaper than that.
it might have just been because it was for your specific group.
Or one
No, I
time
just
deal?
went, no, it wasn't
No,
one time,
for a
it was
year,
for a
you
year. I went online and
Who-
I purchased a movie.
What
license
movie
for-
license did you go through, company?
It was an online group.
Swank?
Swank, or what's the other one?
I was trying to think of the other one. It could depend on,
NCPL.
a lot of movie licensing companies, they may depend on what movie catalog they have to offer for performance rights. I can also tell you that not every library in our system does a movie license, and so it's not like it's not split. And they also, movie licensing companies, they look at your population to determine it. So like Muskego's movie licensing fee might be different than Waukesha Public's, because they're going to look at the potential total participation or attendees and go from there.
Yeah.
Also, this may not matter one way or the other, but the Friends pay our movie license, or they reimburse us for it.
Yeah.
So
I just like 400 for each. I don't know. It just seemed like a lot to me.
that's a good question.
Anything else? All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor of approving the 2019 annual addendum to the Bridges Library System member library and cafe agreements, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. The motion carries. That is approved. Thank you. New business, item number 2. So we're looking for, again, action, approval of Canopy master agreement.
I was just curious, has anyone heard of Canopy?
No, I was gonna look it up and I didn't.
Yeah.
So let me-
So Canopy is a database that I would like us to try. It is something that is slightly different.
Let's keep going.
It's a slightly different setup than our other databases. So one of the questions you just asked me was, is it a flat fee or not? Canopy is not a flat fee. It's a per-use database. So, of course, the first thing that always comes to my mind is, how can you possibly control your budget for that? You know, could you run out of clicks or uses midway through the year, et cetera? And these are called like token-based databases, and basically what you do is you work with the company and they assess your total library card users, and then they look at other libraries who have the company or who have this database of that size and look at their usage and assess trends. Now, it's not perfect. This is a streaming film database, and so what I think is really exciting about this is it's an area we're not into right now. If we're talking about innovation, if we're talking about wanting to meet our patrons and offer new services, streaming films are not something we do, right? We have ebooks, we have audiobooks, we don't have streaming films. And this is actually an incredibly cheap database. It is an amazing database in terms of your ability to cancel. So it is month to month. You do not see databases like that. And so basically what that means is if we run it for 3 months and we realize, holy cow, we don't have the budget for this, you're just done. Now what that would also tell us is that it's really popular and it's a need, and then maybe we have to work it into the budget for next year. But it's very forgiving in terms of what you can plan for in terms of budget. The content is not going to be new sellers, so you're not going to find the Avengers movie on it. You're not going to find, the latest, The Hate U Give. You're not going to find those movies.
Minions?
Not even that.
Not even that, even though it's older.
They call them culturally curated content, but what they're really saying is classics, documentaries, there's children's films on there as well. And so it's interesting because it's films that maybe we don't necessarily have anymore because maybe we've sort of gotten rid of them. Like Cary Grant, there's a lot of Cary Grant on there. And I do think that there's an interest there, there's a need there, and again, it puts us into a technology space that we're not in right now. And I'm curious if, I think there's a need. I think that streaming films is something that's very popular, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And it would be nice to be able to offer our patrons this convenience. We would also be the first in the system to try this. So I think there's some... Yep, in Bridges, yeah. And I've already had several people contact me and say, like, if you decide to do this, please let us know. We are not the only library who's considered this. There's libraries across the country who have already been doing it. I talked to 7 of them because if you haven't picked this up by now, I'm very budget conscious. I'm always terrified of going over budget on anything. It's very important to me. And so I told them, I'm like, how did you control your budget? How did you guess how much money you would need? How can you control all this? And they gave me a lot of really good insight, and I didn't talk to anyone who said, you know what, their numbers were off, we completely blew our budget, this didn't work out. So I think, one, it being in a technologically innovative space that I think we want to go to and offering a unique and socially trending service, I think those are important enough. It's a really reasonable price that we already have in our budget this year to spend. It's our ability to get out of it at any time allows us to experiment and see if this is something we want to continue with.
How much is it?
So really I can pick any amount. Yeah, I can pick any amount that I want. So if I really only wanted to put $100 towards it, and then the first 100 people who click on it get it, but that would enrage people. So basically, we made the assessment, and I think it was a little over $2,000. And so that's nope, total for the year. They say that it's about 99 cents per click.
I was going to ask, and can you get the formula for how many clicks it takes to get through? Because they can manipulate the stats on you.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
How
there
deep you go in.
there is analytics, so that you can see. And from what they told us, Once you click on it, you have up to 3 days to watch the movie. So, like, let's say you watch the first 20 minutes and then realize, I don't have time. I have to go throw out all of my romaine lettuce because it's on recall.
Yeah, do that, everybody, by the way, please. If you didn't hear
You
me.
can
No, what you.
Romaine lettuce
romaine lettuce recall.
Yeah, do not eat it right now.
Any?
CDC, yeah, Canada and the United States, anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, working at a restaurant, I just found
Been
this out.
eating it every day.
Romaine lettuce, be careful. E. coli.
So the thing is that you wanna know how many clicks it actually takes to get to that video, because sometimes they count the clicks through the different firewalls. So,
Sure.
you think, I mean, they
Right, yeah.
manipulate this so much, and
Yeah.
it's, we had to let one of our streaming go because
Okay.
it showed a really skewed number.
Yeah.
Because we really didn't use it that much, but because it
Yeah.
counted the clicks of the firewalls,
Yeah.
it looked
Yeah,
like
you'd
it
think
did.
that'd be counterproductive for that company, because people are gonna drop out, you know, I mean,
Not
that.
if you don't know, because if you don't know, it
Mhm.
looks like 8,000 hits.
Oh,
Wow, they're
okay, look
using
at all
it,
the
it's great.
usage.
But to
Mhm.
get to each one, it could be 10 to 15 to 20.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, so
Yeah.
it's
I'll,
just weird.
I'll certainly
Yeah,
verify
I
with
think that
them.
would be
What
something
they told me
certainly to-
is click and open the movie, that counts as a click, and then you have 3 days of you continuing to be able to click into it without it continuing to charge you to finish watching the
And
movie.
if you go in and look around and don't see anything you like, you aren't charged for
Correct.
looking around.
Yeah, you're only charged if you start watching the movie.
So how is this any different than Netflix or Hulu?
It's not, except that it's
More B
I mean,
movies.
except it probably doesn't have the it doesn't have the same catalog. So Netflix is going to have more popular mainstream movies. This catalog is not going to have that. So what it potentially could do is people who don't have streaming collections, they can watch these. And I would imagine that it has some content that Netflix doesn't have, and it'll have some crossover. So, it'll be very interesting. The good thing is literally we can pay per month.
Girl with a dragon tattoo, Donnie Darko.
Well, I just think
Some
it would
of
be
them,
interesting, just kind of like for price analysis to see what it would cost for Hulu or Netflix or
Right.
this. Because maybe you're better off going with one of the name brand ones where they do have more content and more things available.
We
Then-
can't.
Or you
Can't afford
can't.
it.
Yeah, so Hulu and Netflix are individual subscriptions. I would love actually for Netflix and Hulu to come out with a public
Something like
library
commercial
subscription rate.
subscription,
They don't have that?
They don't, no.
Hmm.
And in fact, there's stuff in their terms of service that says,
Specific,
Like
like
they-
they can't use it
Only
at
personal.
school.
Mhm.
yeah,
Only like private use and.
yeah, within the home. And I was even thinking of writing to Netflix going, there's a market here.
Yeah.
you could definitely,
Right.
you could definitely get into this, so.
So you're looking at a demographics that you'll be hitting, and it's not the young YouTubers and all of this. Would you offer some programming to teach people how to use it? I mean, because I
Yeah.
think if you're hitting that demographics that's a little older, they might need a little help with how to do
Yeah.
it.
I think you were very right on that. So yeah, I think that would be something that we would do, and something that I think we found was really effective with like our Overdrive app. Similar learning curve. We created a bunch of different brochures, and then people would come in, and we can walk them through it. They can bring their device. We can show them how to download the app. We can hand out brochures. We can offer a class. I think you're right. The demographic may not be quite as comfortable, and again, it's a demographic that may not necessarily be signing up for Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that. So we may be able to meet a need that they don't have. And I don't know. Maybe no one will be interested in it. But I know that the streaming technology is of value. I know that we don't have a lot of documentaries and older movies compared to what this catalog can offer. So it hits us in a space that we're not at. And
Are there any parental controls? Because some of these movies are not G-rated.
I don't think so. No. And
Are you concerned
that's
about that?
I'm not, because when we don't really parental control things here anyway. That's sort of up to the parent.
Okay.
We're not a school, so it's not something we're obligated to monitor.
Yeah, I just think it maybe, and I could be very wrong here, but different. I mean, you get a kiddo at home on their iPad or whatever, and they're accessing these movies versus mom or dad bringing them to the library to take out a movie.
Sure, yeah.
So I see the potential for an issue there. That's I was just wondering if they have anything like that. I'm also a little bit concerned. Let's say this is incredibly successful. It's hard to give and then take away.
Oh yes,
Okay.
we had that conversation.
Yes. So how? And it's very hard to give back later on because it's very confusing to people. So I don't even know how you can answer this question. How do you control for that? Because I'd rather make sure that we can either cap it. Like let's say you're at $2,000 a year, divide that by 12 months. So once we're done for that month, then we're done for that month, and then you can look again in the next month versus going over budget and taking it away.
Yeah,
So
we had that conversation because takeaways are incredibly painful, and people don't understand why. There's a couple of things that we would be doing to combat that, because I had those same concerns. I mean, nobody was more. The poor salesperson, when I was talking to him, I'm like, you don't understand. I said, I'm terrified about going over budget. You need to make me feel okay about this. The first thing is we can control how many credits each person, how many clicks or views each person gets a month. So if they say, well, like usually we recommend 10, and I'm like, no, I can't handle 10. I want to see what the usage is, and we can always give more. I said, but the
what you're saying is
takeaway
correct.
is
Because
hard.
then if you have to use 10 to get one movie, then you're...
I really don't think that's the case. And like I said, I talked to a lot of libraries. And I mean, libraries like, the LA Public Library, like big libraries are using this, not just small libraries. So I feel like I would have gotten some feedback right now. And I did talk to them, but I'll certainly verify that. But the things we can do is, like I said, they recommended 10, and the budget that they gave me, that 2,000-ish, that was based on that, and I'm like, no, let's start off with 5. Let's start off with 4 per month. So that's one way we can control that. And again, the other way, the full fail-safe is if for some reason we're burning through money, we can always at some point say we need to pause for the month. Bad for publicity for sure. The other thing is we can always add more money at any time as well. It's almost like a pay-as-you-go phone. So, for instance, if we realize, it's getting towards the end of the year, we think we're going to be about a half a month short based on our projected usage, I can put a little bit more into that from the budget.
Or maybe the
if I
friends
want.
could help.
Yep.
Because I just hate to take it away.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. But there are ways to circumvent that. And, when we were talking about, like, oh my gosh, what if it's so popular that happens? And then it struck me that I was hesitating to do this for fear of people loving it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, that's
Kind of counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is. I'm like, instead, I should figure out how to, if it's that popular, I should figure out how to make it work instead of not ever trying it because I fear that people will love it.
Yeah.
So, it's a new way of looking at a database. I mean, we have databases that, who knows, what if they only got 10 clicks a year, then we paid, thousands of dollars for 10
That's
clicks.
the other side of it.
So, and the money rolls over. So if we don't go,
Okay.
we can
Okay.
keep it
Oh,
year
that's
after
good.
year after year. So there's no waste here. It's only what they look at is what we pay for.
What you pay for.
It's definitely a new way of looking at databases. I think it's exciting. Maybe no one will use it. Maybe they'll use it too much.
Well, and the key is in the promotion of it.
Yep,
as well.
absolutely. But there's efforts, there's ways that we can control and minimize risk, and I don't know. I think it would be exciting.
Did you have, by any chance, the city attorney take a look at the
Yes.
contract?
Yep.
Because it's pretty standard language. I haven't had a chance to
It
read
is.
every word, but
Yep.
I
He-
think it should be vetted.
He did. He looked through it all. He said that this document was fine. He said their terms of service were pretty ridiculous. But I looked them over very carefully, and they are terms of service you see with any database company. The biggest issue would be that if we wanted to sue them, we'd have to go to California. And,
That's not unusual.
And, frankly, if it's that bad, we just cut off service after the end of the month. It's not like we're locked into a 5-year contract. It's,
These are the things you typically click through. Like, I agree.
Right,
Whenever
exactly.
you're on a site, so I mean, that's
I
not.
read it
Yeah.
all. I was
So.
very traumatized by that.
Well, as president of the library board, I'd be glad to fly out to California if necessary.
And there you go. Tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
I appreciate that. That's very
This
kind.
was August of 2018, and Netflix is in West Vancouver Memorial Library. So there is maybe other options.
So I looked at that article because I as you did, I Googled it because I was curious what libraries are doing with Netflix. They're
Well,
doing
it's
something.
Even at Amazon and Hulu.
Yeah.
So there's other.
Yeah,
So
Amazon,
what
maybe.
they're doing is a little bit risky, and I wanted to look into it more before I did anything. They are circulating an account, and they're claiming it's okay based on
I'm sorry, who's they, Brittany? The library
this one library.
This library,
yeah.
okay.
And maybe there's others
There's
that
more,
do
yeah,
it
there's
too.
New York City.
Yeah.
It's not Netflix. It's the library that's
Yeah.
circulating the account. Okay.
So their belief is that it's okay to do it, even though it's a personal license, because, and then I can't remember the exact legal language. I was not prepared to
Break new ground?
An example.
to make that step.
Yeah, break new ground.
Disney's one of the worst that
they
I'll
can
make examples.
Although Disney is trying to pull out of Netflix, they're trying to create their own streaming.
With,
Well, that would make sense for them.
March.
Yeah.
Well, but I think what we're going to see, I'm terrified for Netflix because all these companies, CBS, they're all creating their own streaming platforms. They'll all pull their content because they want people to pay individually. And then what kind of library is Netflix left with? Maybe still a great library, but
Yeah,
I'm
if
concerned
HBO
for the,
pulls out.
right.
yeah.
I'm concerned for the consumer. Right, because we had this glorious period of time where Netflix
And
had
amortized
this
out,
great
you'll be paying a
library.
heck of a lot more than you're
Yeah.
paying for Netflix.
Right, $8 here, $10 here.
Right.
Yeah, so I
$8
did
for
read
Netflix.
that. I wasn't comfortable moving forward with it based on the analysis of that article. It's definitely something I can continue to look into down the road. But at this moment, I don't have enough, based on that article, I didn't have enough comfort level to recommend it. But it's certainly something I can continue to look at.
Do they pay for a public performance license or something? They don't.
No, they're...
How are they so? That's just so scary.
Yeah, and you
Well,
know,
and they're
if
paying
there's-
retail for that
Right,
because they're
if
not
they
getting any
do
kind of
come after
government,
them,
deduction
yeah.
or, that you're a nonprofit, anything like that. They're paying retail, I would assume, unless they negotiated some kind of special deal
Yeah,
with
and
them.
There's a whole slew of them. It's not just that one.
No, it's
Is
not.
it the full Netflix though? I wonder because there is a part of Netflix that they're going to go towards that would be that public performance, but it's very limited, and I don't think it's the whole thing. But maybe that is. I don't know.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, and I can't remember, there was another thing they mentioned about, so obviously they need to be able to access the account, and so I know you have to create an account that, what was it? They have to be permanently logged into the account, because otherwise if people had the account, then everyone would just randomly log in afterwards. I can't remember quite how they said
So
it.
whoever has got the account has got a wide open account in their name, it
Yeah.
sounds like.
So there are
So
libraries...
Brittany Larson
Sure,
goes
yeah.
on to Netflix for the Muskego Public
Yeah.
Library, and your name is being used,
Sure.
potentially. Well, we don't know 100%, but that's...
I mean, there are
Possible.
libraries that are doing it,
Wow.
absolutely. I didn't feel comfortable doing it at this time, but I'm more than happy to look into it. I had started down that path, and, just didn't have enough information that I felt comfortable moving forward with in terms of this budget cycle.
So are you proposing to start with this, and if you find a better thing, you could always cancel this and then do the other one, or?
Yeah, I mean, this is something. So there are other streaming film companies you can go with. Hoopla is another famous one that public libraries are using, that have this checkout process, that lots of libraries use. It's very expensive. They maybe have a little bit more content. This was appealing to me because it was in the streaming film area. I thought it was films that I thought our community would be interested in. it was a very reasonable price, and it allowed us to experiment with this platform in a very reasonable, flexible way. So it certainly, if something better came along, or certainly if I ended up doing more research and realized that, you know what, talk to our city lawyer, analyzed the legal defense that other libraries are using with Netflix, and it seems like it's okay, then we can go for it. I know that at my university, they were very concerned about Netflix in the classroom, and that wasn't even the university or the library trying to get a license. It was more professors with individual accounts wanting to show in the classroom and using fair use as a defense for educational purposes, which a lot of schools and universities can
Showing
use.
the whole movie is a fair use?
Well, it not necessarily, but one of the four
But
factors of
segments
fair use
potentially
is
would be,
yep,
I suppose,
is a section.
arguably.
So they felt comfortable saying that potentially Netflix could be used by a professor to show a small segment in the classroom, as long as it wasn't public performance, as long as other people outside that weren't enrolled in the class could see it.
So this one library used the Hoopla one, and what they found was they exceeded the amount of their budget.
Yes.
So what they did was they limited the amount of checkouts each family could get.
Okay.
Yep, and that's and that's what I said to Gail, that we would never let it be unlimited. They recommended 10. I was thinking more of about 5. And Hoopla, so interestingly enough, when I talked to other libraries that were using Canopy, I asked them about Hoopla, and that was the budget buster for them. That's the one where they said became a runaway train, that they just couldn't.
Hoopla did.
Hoopla. Now, what that means is that Hoopla is very popular.
Yeah.
You know, Canopy has obviously a more narrow scope, and so I don't think that's the reason why it's not a budget buster. But it's something we can afford. It's something I have a little bit money left over in my budget this year in AV, so that's the other
And let's
reason.
see where it goes.
I can't
That
experiment
sounds
with Hoopla because I don't have
Yeah.
the money for Hoopla in 2018. I can't. I'm not ready to experiment with Netflix because I don't have the legal analysis done on that. This is something that I have the money for now that we can try.
And you can see what the response is.
Yeah, and you know what? And if it's bananas, then I think we do need to look more seriously into other streaming content, whether it's Hoopla, whether it's what the libraries do with Netflix. Then it's clearly something that we need to continue to invest in.
So if we were to purchase this would be open to all the patrons of the Bridges system?
That is an excellent question. So I almost pulled this even before it came to you, because the Wisconsin statute, same service for library systems, require that all services are provided equally to all patrons. So that means that any book that we have to make available equally to all patrons in our system. And I thought, well, we can't do that. Like, we'll die.
We're
if
not
we
the
end up-
benefactor.
Yeah,
of
we
it,
can't
yes.
support everyone.
Now,
That
the other
would.
libraries would be like, woo woo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for the first person.
Right.
Right,
To do it.
right. And to our great benefit, in 2017, they revised the statute to say that electronic collections, like Canopy, could be restricted to just the paying library. And that was obviously fantastic news for us in this regard. So I did talk to Canopy, and they did say that we could restrict it to just the field of registered at Muskego. So.
We had the only other option would have been a waiver of some kind, at least to try it as
Sure.
the experimental for the system. But then after that, all bets would be off and you don't want to
Right.
pull it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the silver lining is that we can get out at any time. I mean, that's what makes, this an attractive option to experiment. We can afford to do that at this time, it looks like, so.
I agree.
Well, I forget, did we even put a motion on the
There is.
table? Or did we just kind of start?
Did I just get excited?
No.
I
I don't think we got a motion.
I'm sorry, guys.
I don't
It's
think
all
so.
right, we got excited.
Yeah, it's okay. It's been a long day for me, so well, at this time, I will entertain a motion for approval of the Canopy Master Agreement.
I will make a motion to approve.
Neil, thank you. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
You a second? All right. Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion?
I think we did this discussion before that.
I think we did.
Yes, it's my fault. I started talking.
That's okay. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, well, that motion does pass. Thank you. Item number 3.
So I'm sorry, when will this
Yeah.
start?
Well, now that I have your approval, I will sign this document and send it in to them, and then they just have to set up the accounts. I don't know how long that will take, but I'm hoping to get it live in December. That would be
Why
really
can't
nice,
you
just in time
why
for the
can't you
holidays.
just log in from the site?
They have to make it possible so that when one of our patrons logs in with their library card, it says,
okay.
"Oh, yeah."
Yeah,
you
I'm sure
can
it's
have
probably
access.
different than an individual account. There's
Mm-hmm.
some stuff to set up. That makes sense.
All right. So item number 3, approval of updated 2019 operating budget with the council approved salary study adjustments.
You're gonna wait until there's a.
Oh, right, you have to make another motion.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve based on the adjustments.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Sure.
A second.
Okay, I get to go. Yay. Okay. So, at the September board meeting, I brought to you all the salary study information that the council had. So just a little background again, every 5 years the council or the city's policies mandate that they do a salary study, and that's to make sure that all the city employees' compensation is in line with the market value, that we're not falling too far behind. And of course, the value in making sure that the city doesn't is that the city continues to be an attractive place to work, that we can continue to hire the best talent and retain the best talent. And so they did that salary study. And what they found was that there were some discrepancies in different departments, and the library was one of them, where there were discrepancies, and some positions were more vast than others. And so the council went ahead and approved the salary study increase. And so what I'm bringing before you is this updated operating budget. Obviously, I do need your approval because it's a change from what you approved back then. I can tell you that on July 16th, when the operating budget was approved, the personnel costs, which are going to be the first line, so obviously any increase to someone's salary also impacts pension, health insurance, life insurance. It sort of trickles down a little bit. And so I should also emphasize that the council approved this additional money. It's not money that we had to find within our operating budget. Basically, the city gave us more money. So that's not something that we had to find. It doesn't impact the services we were already hoping to offer for the coming year. So this first grouping of lines are all the personnel costs. And so you're looking at what is now proposed with the salary study increase. In July 16, when you looked at this document, it was basically $59,186 less. So another way for me to say that, because that sounds confusing, is that the city gave the library an additional $59,186 to put in these personnel cost categories to bring the different staff that had market gaps up to the average of what our comparable communities are.
Okay.
And so what I'm looking for is, first, if there are any questions, and then secondly, to just approve the additional funds that the city authorized.
So that was for 18 or 19?
For 19. It would start in 2019, yep.
So did we have someone move off of health insurance? Because the health insurance numbers are down, life insurance is up a little bit, and the health insurance allowance is up a little bit. And I realize they're fractions, but...
Compared to 2018?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those discrepancies shouldn't have changed since we voted on that, but yeah, there's...
So somebody moved off our insurance and took the allowance,
yeah,
it must
I
be.
think that's accurate, yeah. Because, of course, those numbers were set before we started
Right,
hiring
right.
people. So they always
Mhm.
estimate, and then like someone could leave, like let's say Pete left and he always took the health insurance, but let's say I took the health allowance, then their
That would-
estimate was
sure.
off, but it sort of works out between those two categories.
Any other questions, concerns?
As long
What
as they
is
gave us the money.
considered your printed material? Because that's your biggest item.
Print materials,
Yeah.
books.
Oh. Printing.
Oh, like
Printing like the Xerox machine? I'm like,
that would be
Oh,
horrifying.
yeah.
That would be horrifying.
That's quite a printing budget.
Yeah.
Oh, those are books.
Yep, books. Yep.
It's a good question, a fair
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Go.
And there, the programming and the library friend stuff is separated out.
Yeah, and so everything below that personnel, that top quadrant, everything else is the same. There were no other adjustments made
Yeah.
from what you approved
But
back.
versus the way our current budgeting looks at 288% for the,
Sure.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
now back the
Yeah,
way it-
yep. So now, you can see that there's 5,000 that I put in library friends expense,
Mhm.
so that when a friend's charge comes in, it targets that account, so that our programming budget doesn't seem like it's ballooning in
Right.
terms of
Mhm.
expenses. Yep.
Anything else? All right, hearing no further discussion on that, all those in favor of approval of the updated 2019 operating budget with council-approved salary study adjustments, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. That motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 4 under new business. Looks like a discussion on the 2018 action plan update.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry.
Well,
Every time.
oh, we need to make a motion to.
Well, are we just looking for this?
Technically-
Oh, I guess it's technically
Yeah,
just
we're
a
not
discussion.
Technically,
Yeah, we're
you
not
know, you
really
need to kind of
putting
tell us
that,
what it
so-
is
Yeah.
before we make a motion,
Yeah.
so
All
you
right.
don't have to.
So this.
But if we want to discuss,
Yeah.
we should have a motion.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll see down on the agenda, the next step is to approve the 2019 action plan. So I thought it would be important for me to give you an update on the 2018 action plan first, so that you can see, what was happening this year before I talk about 2019. So what I did was I took the exact format of the 2018 action plan, and I put in parentheses next to each line item the status of it. And so if it's completed, I say it's completed, and then I usually put the date as a helpful reminder to me when it was completed. If it was deferred, just due to either lack of staff time or because there were either funding elements that I thought made it important to move it on, then I put deferred. If
She'd
it's
have something to do for 2019.
exactly, woo, thank goodness. I was worried. If I put in progress, it just means that we still have another month and a half to go, and so we're still working on some of those things but by the end of the year it should be completed. And I think those should be the only statuses: deferred, completed, or in progress. So I guess I want to take your direction. I could cover a few big things that are that we worked on or I thought went well. You could scan each page and just if you have any questions, you could pull those out and ask me. I don't know if I could read every single line, but
Please don't.
is that a
It's been a long day.
formal motion? So I guess I'll just entertain any questions you may have.
Yeah.
For
Please.
the exterior benches, I said deferred to 2019, but I believe that it's not even part of the action plan for 2019.
Oh, is it not? Let's take a look.
I don't remember going over that.
Let me see. If I missed that, then I wonder if that was something that I have explore creation of outdoor reading area, and I wonder if that was rolled into that. It's certainly something that I'll include in that broader comment.
What page is that?
Packet page
So the
27.
of the 2018 one, it's the on page 1, first
What?
goal, second bullet point. I put deferred to 2019,
Oh, okay.
and if I recall correctly, I was planning on folding it into this explore creation of outdoor reading area, which is on page 1 of the 2019 draft.
Packet page 27.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a better way of doing that. And I'll make a note to make sure that.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious, because I know a lot of people just stand out there, just nice to have a bench.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about the, best solution for coffee?
So, when I arrived, the update that I had received from the staff was that they had talked to like the city health people about like the Keurigs, and they had recommended against it based on the amount of cleaning or bleaching or whatnot. The other step I decided to take was to see what a coffee vending machine would cost. So I went to a local vending machine company in town, and I looked at the machines that I felt we could reasonably afford. The new ones would be really expensive, so a used one to me would be the only budget-friendly one. And it's not just that I looked at it and thought it was gross, but coffee vending machines are tricky because you have a lot of internal stuff going on. So you have sugar and creamer and coffee. So it's not just like a vending machine with sealed cans of soda. So there's a lot of sanitary stuff going on inside that machine. And I said to the guy, like, well, how do you ensure that this is not going to like make people sick? And he said, well, you'd have to flush out all the tubes every week. I forgot what he said. It was a consistent amount of time, and like lots of cleaning going on. And I thought, well, that just seems, we're all so busy here, and I really don't want to devote someone's time. And I said, do you come out and service that? And he's like, well, we've never done that before, but I suppose I could set up a maintenance contract with you. The problem is that we would then pay thousands of dollars for this machine, and we would then have to pay a service contract to clean it. And based on what I looked at, its interior, like, I think it'd be really important for us to be very diligent about it, because I don't want to make people sick, and you know, we're a public entity. So I just didn't like it. It didn't look good, and I tried to think about like the coffee vending machine that like Pro Healthcare has. You know, they have one of those little tabletop ones, but it's a similar problem of somebody has to clean it, flush out the hoses, bleach, etc. Then I started thinking broader about it, and I don't know what originally put that on the strategic plan. I don't know if like a lot of patrons indicated interest. I've never actually had someone inquire about coffee, and I think, this is just a guess, it's because we have San Lorio right next door to us, and then we have Starbucks right down the road. And so what we have are two really good coffee places bookending us, and given what we would have to charge to make sure we could afford that coffee and the creamer and stuff from the vending machine for, let's be honest, it's vending machine coffee, so it's not going to be great. I don't know if people would be willing to pay even a nominal price when they could get a good cup of coffee right next door. If we were further away from coffee places, it would actually make a lot of sense, because we are in a more remote location. There's not a ton of variety of certain services. So I could see, you know, investing in, you know, like a new coffee machine in a service contract.
What if you spoke with the owner of San Lorio, who's Andrew from Lucky's Bar, about working, like if they show their library card, they get a 10% discount.
That would be interesting.
That's what I was thinking.
That's a good
You
idea.
know, then he's really about the community. So I
Even like
could
their
not
shout out.
imagine him not wanting to do that. And then if they had a sign up saying, show your Muskego library card.
I could see if it was your receipt of the books checked out or something.
Or some,
But the other question is, do you want all that coffee in the
That's what I
library?
thought.
That's where I thought you were going to go was if they spill it.
Yeah.
That's where I
And
thought you were
that's-
headed.
I mean, I never want to forbid beverages or food from the library, because it's a place where people come to study and relax. But certainly, if there was a vending machine in here spitting out coffee, that could
yeah.
be a thing.
Yeah.
I like that idea. of talking to San Lario. I was just last week talking to the Sussex Public Library director, and she said they did something with a bunch of local businesses where it was like a show your library card and get a discount.
Yeah.
And so I was going to talk to her more about like what that all entailed. And San Lario would be a perfect
I
test
totally
of that.
picture Andrew being up for that
Yeah.
because he's all about
Yep,
the community.
he is. Yep.
So,
All right.
so his name is Andrew. So
Well, thank you for that. I'm
Yeah.
going to make a note of that.
Yeah, great recommendation.
Well,
Let's see if that,
yeah, I mean,
there's something there
you can
worth
always,
exploring.
if you're doing some sort of event or whatever, when we were doing events at Country Meadows for PTO, all I did was go to Starbucks and say I had an event, and they gave me a big, huge thing, and you could put it out, and it
Oh,
for the
sure.
staff.
Oh, that's nice.
And it kept
Yeah,
warm.
there you
And,
go.
I mean, so if you had some sort of big
Yeah.
event coming,
Oh, sure.
you
More
could
like
ask,
catering.
and
They just
they,
give it to you?
they just gave it to us for free.
Really?
We did
Wow.
not have to pay a cent for them.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
granted, it was Grandparents' Day or
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
an event, but they were more than willing to donate.
That's really great. Thank you for
So-
letting me know that.
Yeah, I find most companies are looking for things to do, like for nonprofits and that type of thing. I mean, I just know that there are some companies that actually have grant money sitting there,
right.
you know.
Or
and-
foundations. That
Yeah,
they
or
have
they,
to give
they're
a certain-
waiting
Yeah.
for people to come and
Yeah.
ask for this money. And I know it's never that simple, but it's
Sure.
just, I had some people tell me, the company that they work for, that they say, yeah, they have this money sitting there in this fund every year and nobody takes it.
What's tax write-off for him?
Right?
You know, I
Right.
mean, it helps. It's a win-win. So
Excellent. Well, I made some
So-
notes
Yeah.
of that. So.
yeah, I definitely can not see him not thinking it's just a great idea. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, he's gonna. I know he is. So
That's great.
And it'd be a great balance of
Yeah.
making a connection to coffee without us being liable for the
Right.
machines and the service contracts. So.
well, and then if you each have a little sign, you know, if he's got a sign or whatever, I mean, it's win-win for advertising for the library and for,
And for him.
Yeah.
San Lario.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's true.
And I think I mentioned this the last time we brought up this conversation on coffee, but let's make this issue a presidential mandate. The president of the board wants some sort of coffee
Coffee?
solution.
Well,
Okay.
And
Okay, but I'm being discriminated against because I don't like coffee.
I don't like coffee either. So
Well, that's all that's your
San
problem.
Lorian has tea, and a great tea
You know,
there.
I've heard stories of boards getting into huge fights. I didn't think that our board
Oh,
would get
one-
to it over
No,
coffee.
no. But do I get 10% off on
Yeah.
my cold
Your
tea drink?
Tea,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I hope so. I would think that they
Have
would
it
be
be a
more than
beverage.
willing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
On a
Or they
beverage.
have a punch card.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't want to do,
Oh, sure.
you know, show your library card and they'll issue you a punch card, and after 10 punches, you get one
A
for
free
free.
one. Right.
You know,
Right.
something on that, and that they can come up with where it wouldn't take too much away from them.
I'm so passionate on this issue that I might call for the creation of a special committee. Yeah, presidential mandate.
Good luck finding volunteers. Everyone's so busy.
Yeah.
It'll be a committee of one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, any other questions or concerns on that update?
I just wanted to thank the other committee members for meeting. I could not attend the meeting due to something I just couldn't get around. So you guys did a great job. Thank you. So you don't need me. So you guys can just keep meeting without me.
No, we still need because now we're going to meet. We're going to get into the nitty gritty.
And look at all the ideas we come up with just
Yeah.
by talking. I mean,
Right.
this is the value of a board. So
Exactly.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, so I guess all I would ask is there anything else that since we're talking about this, anyone else who isn't on the committee would like to toss out there for us to discuss at the next one? Is there anything anybody can think of?
For the 2019?
Yeah,
talking
just
about? Yeah.
anything, and I guess nothing really huge because the
Well-
capital campaigns are done, so I mean, is there anything else
Well,
on the
we're-
horizon?
We're not quite there yet. So we have the 2019 action plan coming up next.
Yeah.
Oh,
This one-
Yeah.
okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
we
I'm
just-
already
we-
looking at
Yeah,
it,
we
so
don't-
I'm,
yeah,
the
yes,
18.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but if
Jumping
anyone
ahead.
has any questions about the 2018, the caregiver kits and the early literacy kits, we finally were able to get the shelving up today, so those are now ready for circulation. So if anyone asks, they're in the back. You know, they're these huge tubs with hundreds of parts, and we were just afraid that they'd get opened by little hands and things would disappear. So we have dummy boxes in the children's area that advertise that they exist, and in the adult area for the caregiver kits, similar things. They're basically just boxes that say want this, ask for it at circulation.
Oh, okay.
And then
Oh.
they'll come back and pull it for you.
Okay.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, since we're back over here. Is there anything at all in here, just trying to get a read, that the staff either didn't enjoy doing or that was a real problem for them? Or, the last thing that the strategic planning committee wants to do is give them either tedious tasks or tasks that aren't
Yeah.
worthwhile, because we know what we like, but they
Sure.
know how to run a library,
Yeah.
as do you. So is there anything like that?
The carpeting project almost killed me.
And
And it made me realize how traumatizing it'll be to recarpet the entire library, but it's something that has to be done. So, no, I think that everything.
They all seem comfortable with what we're suggesting.
Yeah, and something that I always do is whenever I bring a draft to strategic planning, my first step is to talk with the staff.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, and I always say,
okay.
Are these reasonable? And then I go to strategic planning and we talk, and sometimes there's new ideas and modified ideas, but this is always done with input for them. And sometimes we make plans that backfire, but I can't think of anything that was, such a
turned out to be
traumatizing.
bigger than expected or anything like that.
No, not off.
I guess we
No, off the
just
top
want to
of-
manage expectations.
Definitely,
So
I appreciate that.
All right.
So with the outdoor screen,
Oh, yeah. That was a really easy one. I found out, Kyle told me that the Parks Department has one.
okay.
And so I thought, well, if I ever decide to do an outdoor movie, I'm just going to
Yes.
borrow it from the Parks Department. So that was probably the easiest task that I completed.
Utilize the local resources.
Yes, yes.
Under services for formula a plan for early literacy education for parents.
Mm-hmm.
What does that plan look like?
So we did the 2 Penfield early literacy nights, which admittedly were not very well attended. I was hoping we'd see some more people to that. We also have, these are brilliant. They're just, we just haven't hung the shelf to put them on yet. But Abby and Elka worked together to create all these brochures of different topics related to early literacy and different topics. And so, Abby will have made recommendations on different children's materials, and then Elka will have made cross-reference materials that are in the adult collection that, parents might find useful connected to that topic. And so, I think maybe we have, 8 brochures on a variety of topics, and we bought this really nice brochure thing that we're going to bolt to one of the walls in the children's area, kind of near where the board books are and stuff, because that's sort of that area. And so those brochures will go out. They're all done. We just have to have George hang it. So I think those will be helpful in terms of early literacy.
Do they just list books and resources that are in this library?
Correct. Yep. And then the other thing that we don't have quite up yet, but we want to put the components of early literacy, the 5 components of early literacy, on a big sign and hang it in the children's area, in that same corner where the early literacy brochures are going to be. And so we have the boards now. We just got them cut, and so then Abby's going to paint them with chalkboard paint, and then we'll get those up there. And so that will be a nice reminder as parents are looking for items that those components exist and should be things they think about. So.
Just for, I wasn't able to make the 2, just because it was a summer night and
Mhm.
activities. If we were to do this in the future, it'd be nice maybe during the school year,
Okay.
when the kids are actually in session and
Sure.
parents are thinking more academically.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Anything else?
Under your programming for young adults, you have down offer regular gaming activities for teens.
Yep, we did that. We tried it for about 2 months, once a week. I think we got one person once.
Well, I'm just curious what you did for that, because I look at I have 6 kids,
Mhm.
2 boys that are 13 and 11, and they play Fortnite like there's no tomorrow.
Yes.
And if you would say that one of these rooms up front was stocked with computers, monitors that they could hook up their PlayStation 4s to, that they could all be in the same room playing
Mhm.
that same game against one another,
Mhm.
you get a room full of
Yeah.
kids.
So like a
in there.
land party.
Yes.
Interesting.
And I mean, we just had November 7th, I think, we had our big rummage sale again for the school district out of, Muskego L. And I know that they have monitored, I don't know, everything's so cheap there. Everything's $15, just so you get $15 to $30. That's, every chair is $15, right?
How come we don't hear about that either? You have to be
That
on
was-
Facebook or what?
It wasn't
cheaper
on
than
the,
that. It was like $5. I got 2
Really?
desks and 2 chairs for
Yeah,
$5.
How do you,
everything's
how do you
cheap.
get that out to the public?
well, the last place that I saw it was on that Muskego,
Main
like,
page.
Oh, the
well,
main
not
one.
there, but it was also on like the historical page too. I don't know what they have in there, but I don't know. I just know that as a parent, when I have these kids come over and they all bring their monitors and they
Sure.
all bring, I'm like, this is insane. I don't understand. But if I could come here and have a birthday party, when I have all of the monitors there and they can have a landline, I mean, I would almost be up for that.
Yeah. And I mean, we couldn't actually run a birthday party for people. We'd have to open it to the entire public. But yeah, I'll mention that to her. I wrote down land party, Fortnite. And is Fortnite, I'm familiar with it generally, but does it require a PS4? Can it be an Xbox 360?
It's
Xbox
also
One,
on
I mean.
it's also on the computer.
It's also on the, just
It's
the
a
PC.
web-based.
Okay. So if they have an account, can they play the account through the PS4 or on the computer, depending upon what access they have to the
You just
hardware?
have to be invited into the game with your friends.
Cool. Thank you. Have you
I don't
played
know.
it?
Yes, it's hard. I mastered it as well. I get killed like within, it's not bad.
Sure.
It's not good. But it's just good to know what your kids are doing. And
For
stuff.
sure.
But, yeah, these parties are nuts. I mean, they all come with TV
Yeah.
monitors and it's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just craziness.
Cool.
But I think if we had one room where you could come and, I don't know, maybe it would be something that kids would get into.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially if we're not, I saw that the room rent, or the room thing was down this year. That maybe it would be, not by much, but.
Yeah, and that's overall we're up 1% over the course of the.
It was down by 5.7.
Yeah, in October, yeah. But over the course, if you look at the
August,
whole
September.
year, we're up mostly because of really strong July and April. Looks like.
Yeah, but just, the summer months are just lower.
Mhm.
But that's when they would be free to do that kind
Right.
of stuff. I don't know.
Cool.
Just something to think about.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? All right. Let's move into item number 5. Looking for action here, approval of the 2019 action plan.
Motion to accept approval.
All right. Trace, motion for approval. Is there a second on there?
I'll second.
Neil, thank you. Any further discussion?
All right. So I have just a brief overview of this, and then so the strategic plan, when it was created 3 years ago, had 12 main goals. They were the overarching large goals. So just to give you an example, when you look at the action plan, the sort of grayed out boxes with the big bold, those were the overarching goals that the strategic plan process pulled out. And so we completed one of those main goals. One of the main goals was the renovation of the children's area. And so I removed that from the 2019 action plan because there's nothing more to do with the renovation specifically. But I added a main goal, or took the liberty of adding a main goal, even though it wasn't part of the original strategic plan, because we do have a strategic planning process coming up in 2019, which is going to take a fair amount of time, and so I thought it deserved its own category. So you will see that main goal at the end. It's the last thing. So just so we can sort of get a sense for where we're at in terms of action items. So the action items are the small bullet points under the main goals. Again, if you want to refer back to the format of the 2018 action plan, it's those little bullet points underneath the main goals. For the 2017 action plan, so the first action plan of the 3-year strategic plan, there were 43 total action items. In 2018, there were 48. Currently in this plan for the 2019, there are 50. Now, I wasn't trying to necessarily continue to go up and up always because, again, capacity doesn't work that way. But, you know, depending upon the size or the magnitude of the action item,
Right.
that really dictates how many action items there are. And so looking at this plan and in talking to the staff, this amount seems doable.
Hi, I'm Vic.
And so where these action items came from, many of them were pulled from the strategic plan. So whatever third remaining, you know, that was left over, you know, not on the 2017, not on the 2018, they're listed here. Anything that was deferred from the 2018 action plan, something that we didn't get to, that will also be here. And then there were a few unique ideas that staff came up with that they really felt based on, you know, mood of the community and new technology or something that they got from like continuing education. Those were added here as well. So that's where we're at overall. And I'm happy to, and so this went to Strategic Planning Committee, and we looked at it, and then now it's here before you all for any questions. And I am looking, after a discussion, hopefully for an approval to approve
Where's
it for
the big one you
2019.
added?
That's going to be the last document, or on packet page 31. The bold, execute a strategic planning process, gathering data and insights.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't be included in a previous document. So here's where I ask.
Yes.
If there's anything that people want to add or change, or are you looking for actual approval tonight?
Yes.
You are?
Yep.
Okay. So then there, if there would be a motion to approve, it would be, and then we'd have to go for an amendment if somebody added something. I guess that would be the.
A motion to approve with the amended discussion items, or
would
however
be-
however you
then
want
you'd
to
have
make the
to
motion.
have an amendment, I guess. So I'll move to approve the 2019 action plan draft.
Meeting note that we were gonna just let them soak this in, look it over for a month, and then vote
My
on it next month.
well, we could do one of two things. My understanding was that we were going to vote on the 2019 action plan, but the 2020-2022 strategic planning
Yeah.
framework, that was something that you had recommended, which was a great idea to put in here. That I'm just going to mention it broadly, and then we'll vote on it next month.
So should I rescind the motion?
Oh, no. But certainly, if people look at this and decide not ready to vote on it, have way too many questions, the board could always,
Defer.
Well, we already have a motion on the table, right?
Right, but if there's no second, then it ceases to,
Well, I will second, but if there's anybody
but we can
has to.
still agree to defer after discussion.
So I second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
There's one thing that, I'm sorry, after we
Mhm.
met, that it's been in my mind a lot, just because I use the facility for Storytimes a lot. And one thing that I don't know if we wanna maybe look into more is Storytimes for younger kids, as far as, I know they have age appropriate, here's for the toddlers, here's for the babies, here for the toddlers, and then here's for the preschool. But what I'm starting to see is that the preschool is just any age. I don't know if we wanna, I don't know what to do about that, but I'm seeing that it's not really, they all seem very similar.
In terms of the content.
Yeah, and the people that are coming.
So, in theory, the content should be different. Like what's going on in Brilliant Baby should be different than what's going on in Preschool Power. I do agree with you though, and I can sort of see why this is happening. Parents have a preschooler and then they have a baby,
Right.
and they
And I understand.
Yeah, and so it sort of becomes this.
And I know different libraries do different things about it. Whereas a preschool, they just allow the preschooler to go in without the sibling and without the parent. It's more of a drop off.
Okay, yeah.
Because they're of that age where the parents just stay outside.
Sure.
The door. And just creates a different kind of environment and focus.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know what's happening if, it's no one's fault, you know, but this is just what I'm kind of observing.
Mhm.
So I didn't know if maybe it's not even meant for action plan, but just.
Yeah, that's something that I'll dwell on. I know that I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with having parents just dropping off their child.
Yeah, libraries just do all different things.
Yeah, and I actually think it's of good value for the parent to be in there too, because those early literacy skills that they're hopefully picking up on as well.
Yeah, when it's geared towards 4 or 5-year-olds, but there's only a handful of 4 or 5-year-olds, and then 20 rest are, you know, 4 and under.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
under 4. And I want to make sure that there's services for everyone, you know, because there are, but it just seems to be changing a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and maybe what we have is a population in flux right now. So maybe we have more parents that have us, not quite as many preschoolers, but they had a bunch of younger kids. And so when you go to the preschool power, you know, for every one preschooler, you're right, maybe you have a couple of younger kids. And, you know, and I don't know if I have an answer for that, but it's a good observation.
Yeah, it's just something I've noticed. And, you know, I mean, Abby's doing a great job, you know, and she's just trying to teach to her crowd, you know.
Anything else? Hearing nothing further, all those in favor of approving the 2019 action plan, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. The action plan is approved. Thank you.
Just a quick question. If, for an example, somebody comes up with the best idea on the planet, and we, you know, want to amend the action plan, and obviously we're going to be in strategic plan, so that would be a non-issue. Does that have to come back here, do you think, or can we? Is this a fluid document? I mean, is it?
I mean, it's fluid in the sense of if there's ever an idea that happens throughout the year, we don't say nope, not part of the action plan, not
Right.
going to do
Exactly.
it. So, but I think the action plan is important as not only as a starting off point, but it's something to make sure that we know that we have the capacity to do this. And obviously we wouldn't want to keep adding stuff and adding stuff and adding stuff, because then, you know, you check one thing off and all of a sudden 7 more things appear, and that would be very difficult. But, you know, certainly throughout the year we make assessments, and we sometimes have to adjust, or we do things that pop into our head because it all of a sudden becomes a great idea.
Yeah,
so.
but every time you alter it, I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah,
I just think like Camille's idea about San Lorio, great idea, you know, and I'm not saying that would be that specific in the plan, but that's a great idea.
Nope.
Do you have to amend this plan to add that?
Nope, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing that I would ever amend this plan for is if there was a one of these major goals that all of a sudden got added or subtracted.
Right.
Like, for instance, if all of a sudden we realized we don't want to offer services to children anymore. You know, then it would be reasonable, because that's a huge part of the action plan, and all of a sudden there's this gap here in productivity, and what do we want to fill that with? Now we have a strategic gap here. But, you know.
And then would you have to come to the board and ask permission to remove the children's programming? I guess that's...
I think that would be important.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just trying to understand process here.
Yeah.
That, you know, I mean, if you want to add something big, same process.
Yeah.
Just as much as if you want to take away something big,
I mean,
same process.
I think that if I were to delete from this plan, I would absolutely want to talk with you all about that first. If there's a good idea that comes up and it doesn't require additional funding, I
would think that would be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's
Yeah.
adding
Yeah,
additional
I'm
funding,
going to do
then
it.
Yeah.
We want to leave room for growth and inspiration throughout the
Right,
year.
exactly.
And not
I
have
don't
to
want to
wait
say,
for-
it's not in the
Yeah.
plan, so we're not going to do it. I don't want
Yeah.
that to happen
So
either.
that would be my take on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
All
does,
right.
it seems like it's sort of open-ended and we're exploring these different categories, so new ideas may come in.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'd have to go back and amend for every.
Yeah, unless we're looking for money.
Yeah.
So in your, like, for instance, in the 2018 plan, you put under the develop, innovative and appealing programs, plus enhance existing services for a wide range of adults.
I'm sorry, what packet page is that?
It's 25. you put down explore creating lecture series, defer to 19.
Yep.
But then when I'm on 19, I don't see it.
Was that one not in there either? I thought.
And continuing various variety of programs geared towards seniors, creating programs targeted towards patrons of their 20s and 30s, investigate and deposits, explore coupons.
Well, it was definitely meant to be in there.
And what kind of lecture series are you looking at? Like, what was your idea about that?
I think we wanted to go for a grant, but then we didn't end up going for it this year, so we wanted to try again next year. The lecture series we were looking at was it was a series of like historical lectures, and then you get like professors from local to come in and give talk and feedback on it. So if I did not throw that in there, I meant to.
It's always good to have an extra set of eyes.
That's
looking at
true.
everything.
That's the truth. Programming. Oh yeah, I missed it. I'll add that in.
Okay.
That was intended.
Yeah, I'm thinking just because the spacing was a little bit off, it just disappeared, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I just didn't know like what the series was about and stuff. So I was
Mhm.
curious, like, because we were just at St. Leonard's for an enrichment that they had on, like Mind, Body, and Spirit or something like that, and they
Yeah.
had some woman come from that was local, that was a chiropractor that was all into healthy eating and stuff. I thought, I don't know if they paid her, I doubt it, because she was really promoting her
She's very good. at
chiropractor
communicating.
thing. I mean, but was that something you were thinking of, or was something different? And your answer explained that.
Yeah, and
So.
based on that one grant. Now, of course, if we didn't get the grant, or we're certainly open to other ideas. Like we liked the idea of a lecture series because I thought it'd be something interesting to try. We technically did a lecture series this year. In a way, we had a senior programming lecture series, so it was fall prevention, it was Medicaid, it was, so that's technically I would consider that a lecture series, but we wanted to do one that was a more broader range.
That was interesting, because the kids were very asking questions. My granddaughter evidently.
Yeah, they were
And
there.
it was about health, and the kids liked it.
Yeah, she talked. And I'm a healthcare, and I'm skeptical of chiropractors, and I don't know why, but mainly probably because we don't deal with them in the hospital at all.
Sure.
But she was interested. I mean, she.
Is that Dr. Drac?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So
who I
it
go
was-
to.
Yeah.
She was
So
really
I mean,
good.
it was good. I mean,
Nice.
it was, and she was plugging her place a little bit,
Sure.
but because it was stress related or whatever, like things,
Yeah.
the topics and stuff. But it was interesting.
Yeah, cool.
She was.
She did
Yeah,
a lot
and
of nutrition.
I remember
Yeah.
talking about this early on with Elka, and I think one of the discussions was, is the criteria based on whether somebody was going to be paid or not paid, and then the discussion was, well, the library wouldn't pay anyone, and we got kind of hooked into that issue, and is that really what makes something a lecture series, like where you bring
Oh, sure.
somebody of name, if you will, and you pay that person?
Sure.
Does that, but then how does that affect people who come in and do programs for free? So, I mean, there was some discussion about that on the hierarchy is a lecture series a paid series?
Sure.
And that, because otherwise, I guess it would raise the question, why were you going for a grant if it wasn't to pay people?
Well,
What
the
was
grant.
the reason for it?
Well, the grant was interesting because it wasn't just to pay people to come, but it covered, like you could get these historical packets that would come and help.
Okay.
So like I can't remember all the details, but it came with like supplementary materials that would help, support the lecture. So, but we wouldn't have to do that if they don't offer the grant next year. Then there's many ways that we could make that lecture series look. There's like you said, a variety of topics that we could explore. So,
And is there a policy, forgive me for not knowing it, if you charge people for something?
we have a mixed. We have some people who speak for free, and we have some performers and or speakers that charge. So it just really depends.
So it is okay.
Yep.
But we don't charge the people.
Correct. That is something that we cannot
Right.
do. Correct. Yep.
So I was correct about you. People cannot, they wouldn't pay $5 to get in the door
Correct.
to see some really important name person.
Correct. Yeah, the library cannot charge.
Cannot.
Oh, okay.
Yep. The Friends of the Library can ask for donations, but we cannot charge.
Okay.
And it's
Because
much
that's always,
nicer
to
that way.
me, personally, what a lecture series is.
Oh,
It's,
sure.
it's, I don't want to say more high-end, I don't know what right words to use, versus people who come in and graciously give programs, not that they're not worthy and not good, but
Sure.
what sets that lecture series apart from the traditional program?
Sure.
And maybe nothing.
Yeah, I think to me a lecture series is just, it's a consecutive programs or more than one program that's tied together with a theme that has professionals giving something, whether that's free or not, so, or we pay them or not. So, well, thank you for catching that, Tracy. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Good question.
Yeah, you might want to go through and just double check.
Big- yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
nothing.
Sorry to make this meeting longer, but can you just quickly go over, because I know it's a big program, and it's starting next month, the 500 books before 15, because that's gonna.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Just quickly describe the 500 books before 15 program.
You know, I don't have a ton of details yet about it, unfortunately. I know Abby and Amanda are in the final stages of talking about it and what kind of incentives to provide, because obviously we have incentives, but they need to look different because if kids are graduated from the first program. So I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of details, but I will make a note to bring, I think they should have them shortly, and I can bring that to the next meeting, so. Make a note.
I did reach out to Abby, and because it was in the Across the Community
Yep.
newsletter,
Yep.
saying it was coming out in November. And when I said, like, oh, is this out? And she's like, it's coming out next month. So I did.
Oh, okay.
I did connect with her that.
Okay. Yeah, I should get more details so that if someone asks me at the reference desk, I can answer the
Yeah,
question.
because it's out in the community.
Yep, yep.
So.
All right.
So I guess come with your ideas if you have any others that were missed by the committee. Anybody that you'd like to see
And certainly,
happen. If it's big, then we'd have to come and amend the plan. But if
and
it's,
talk about whether we have the
and
capacity
yes.
to do it.
Right.
Certainly, and in 2019, the board will be. I will be heavily asking and talking not only to the community focus groups and all that stuff, but to the board because we have a whole new plan. So there's going to be a lot of fun time for brainstorming and coming up with the next 3 years. So.
All right. I believe we're on item number 6. A discussion on the strategic planning framework draft for December action.
All right, so Robin had this great idea. So this came in the strategic planning committee meeting. I brought this to the group. And basically it's a framework for how the strategic planning process in 2019 will go. And so I broke it down into what I thought were the really important elements of timeline, resource documents that we would need to access for demographic and trend analysis, the report format, library stakeholders, types of data collection methods, things to consider, and then leftovers from the 2017 through 2019 strategic plan. And so just to specify, there are some items that were on the 3-year strategic plan that did not make it into any of the action plans. And largely those items are due to the fact that with the deferral of some of the capital funds that all city departments had to do, we can't accomplish those tasks because we don't have the funds for them. So those are items that I want us all to be aware of, that they were part of the previous strategic plan, so then we can decide moving forward, are they still relevant? Should they go on to the next plan? Should they disappear into the ether? Okay, so I wanted to put this on the December action plan for approval, but Robin had the good idea of, let's put it in the packet now so that you all have a chance to review it and really look it over so that by the next meeting we can talk about it in great detail. So my plan, and again, because I knew this was going to be a long meeting, was to not really entertain any questions unless desperate measures. And you can always email me in between and ask questions, and I can give you clarification. But we can discuss this at the December meeting. But it's here for you so that you can review it before then.
So if I needed to look up what edge assessment was, I could Google that and it's going to be...
Yeah, You won't have any specific details related to the Muskego Public Library, but it'll give you more details about what the EDGE assessment is. So. And this is sort of just a framework. Like, obviously, I could have written many more details, books about it, but this was just to give you all sort of a skeleton, a view of the process. That was all I had on that. So.
Questions,
So
concerns?
on here, it's from the leftovers, the last page, 35, explore outside setting after fixed your benches. It looks like it's,
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
it's not gonna happen, which,
Well, you know.
We need to get an Eagle Scout in here.
right?
That's a great point.
I mean, copying and pasting is
okay.
a beautiful
I just-
thing. I mean, to me, it makes sense to fold it into that explore outdoor reading area. So that's what I'm
Probably, yeah.
gonna do anyway. And apologies for my copying and pasting. So
All right.
You're
Anything
not
else?
looking at a meeting before, a strategic plan before the board meeting, correct?
that was not my plan. No,
Good,
because
okay, 'cause I doubt I'll be at the
Yeah.
December board meeting.
Yep.
Anything else? Questions, concerns, thoughts on that topic? All right, thank you. Item number 7, looking for action on the 2018 Library Director Evaluation. And at this time, someone help me out with my Robert's rules here. Do we technically
You
call
should,
for the vote
did you
before?
put the actual exception in the?
The notice of closed session is listed.
Yeah, but you're supposed to read, there it is.
Yeah, are we reading it before voting on closed session or after? Do you remember what the order's going to be?
I think we vote.
Well, there's your exception, 1985 sub 1 sub C. So you would move to go into closed session based on the exception. Okay,
Sure.
so, but it is, I don't think you can technically just read it off the page. Okay, I'll just do the best I can here and hope it's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, my question was, are we reading it before we call for a vote
Mhm.
on closed session or after, if you recall?
Well, you
If
have to
there's a
make the motion to
technicality.
go into closed session based on a statutory rationale, which is in here.
Gotcha, okay, that's
Okay,
what you're telling-
so
that's what you're
you'd
telling
say, like, you'd move for discussion and action relative to the, based on section 1985 sub 1 sub C.
Gotcha. Then we'll vote.
Because you have to have the rationale in order
Then
to
we'll
move
read the
into
full
closed
notice.
session. Mhm.
Thank you.
That's my understanding of the way it works.
All right, and that
Of
works
course, I
for
thought I
me.
had to abstain, so, you know.
Yeah, that works for me. Item number 7, 2018 Library Director Evaluation. I am looking to go into closed session here based on Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, subsection 1, subsection C. And
The purpose is for discussion and action.
the purpose is for discussion and action relative to the 2018 Library Director Performance Evaluation, and to take such further action as may be necessary and appropriate with respect to such matters. The Library Board will hold the closed session in the library conference room at the library. Upon conclusion of the closed session, the Library Board will convene an open session to consider its public agenda, including motions to recommend approval or rejection of the above-listed deliberations or any of the public agenda items that have not been acted upon.
Okay, second?
Is-
So who did the first? Just sorry.
He read the motion.
Okay, so that was Aaron.
You're the second.
Okay, so then you have to
Any-
approve.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of moving into closed session, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, we are entering closed session at 6:42 p.m. Thank you. All right, we are back in open session at 6:59 p.m. I will entertain a motion at this time to approve the 2018 Library Director evaluation as agreed upon.
Are we being more specific? Is that, okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Barb, thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The 2018 Library Director evaluation as agreed upon is approved. At this time, communications and miscellaneous business is authorized by law. I don't have anything. Brittany, do you?
I do not.
All right, so at this time, I am looking for a motion for adjournment, please.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
Gail motion, Tracy seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? We are adjourned at 7 p.m. on the dot. Thank you, everybody.
Wood.
Everybody.
Wood.
Everybody.
Wood.
Everybody.
Wood.
Everybody.